Welcome to thesextalk.com, where parents can go to get clear and confident to have the sex talk with their kids.
Welcome to another episode of the Sex Talk podcast. I am excited to introduce somebody to you guys today from Little Rock, Arkansas. My buddy Ryne has a really cool story, has really cool examples he's going to share with you guys about how he is having the sex talk with his kids, and then equally how he is impacting his community. You have to stick around to find out what I mean by that. I'm not going to spoil it here in the beginning. But Ryne, thanks for being with me, bro.
Brother, thanks for having me. It's an honor for sure.
Yeah, dude. And remind me how you popped into my email inbox, because I think that's such a cool story.
Very good. So I was actually on a road trip for my work, which can be rare. And God told me to turn on the Better Man podcast. So I did. And of course, I get super excited when I see anything that says the word sex on it. So I'm like, okay, this is relevant to me and what God's called me to do. So it was the sex talk on the Better Man podcast. And I listened to it for, I think, 35 minutes. And very quickly, God made it clear that, like, you need to call this person immediately. And I don't have internet on my phone. So it's very difficult if anyone out there does not have internet on their phone, you have to go to Google Maps, look for some business, and you can call them. And so I couldn't do that. So I had to go find the nearest, had to wait and get back to my office. And I found your number and email and contacted you. And I really felt like this is something that God put in my path, I suppose, for some things that could be good for my family, but ultimately the family at the school where my kids go.
Yeah, dude, I was humbled. I was blown away. When you reached out, I was like, this is so cool. Like, you heard a podcast and then you called me up and you're like, Nick, I'm all in, bro. Let's go.
Yeah.
How can we get this everywhere? I want to use this with my kids. I want to use this in the schools. And I was honored and humbled to reach out, and we've been connecting ever since. And it's been really cool just to see how you're taking leadership in this area. I think before we go anywhere else, that's something worth acknowledging as a father, as a man who's leading. It's just so cool and rare to see you saying, I'm going to lead in this area. So thank you for doing that, man.
No, thanks. That's kind of you to say, but I remember it stood out. It just seemed to be so simple. And, you and I are from the same generation where we've been talking about having a sex talk for forever. And you think at some point, aren't we past this? But all the time I have friends like, man, when do we bring this up? Or in church, we say, wait, how do we do this? And the way you described it on the podcast, I remember, was just, this is going to be so simple, smooth, and we're going to give a great sex talk. And it just sold me on this needs to happen. I remember the words you used was revival of sexual integrity. But yeah, I fell in love pretty quickly with.
Well, to that end, I'm curious, now that you've been through it, what's your feedback? What's your perception, right? Like, if going in, we did a good job of saying, hey man, this isn't a big deal. Like, you got this. It's simple. And here is, for lack of a better term, the easy button. So now that you've jumped into it, what are you experiencing?
Yeah, so I would say I went to it the lens of expecting the easy button, and I got out of it a cool mix of the science and a biblical worldview to help give, I guess, empowerment. So I'm an architect, and I always think, like, if I'm going to talk about a building, it's a lot better if I was the one who designed it and drew it. I feel like the resources you give help you be the designer behind your sex talk. So when people ask, you have this blueprint behind you, you can have some confidence. And that's what it did for us. It was interesting because we'd watch one, maybe two or three, and it would trigger something in our minds that we needed to implement immediately. And then other things where we needed to just kind of maybe change some rhythms of our household to set some different standards, maybe to see some things we could do in our community is probably a better way to put it. Like, here's some things maybe we see in our current culture in Little Rock that we could work together towards. But the content's fantastic. Yeah.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. And that is what we hear from many parents. And I think sometimes people don't believe us when we say, hey, like, we are literally trying to do all the heavy lifting for you, mom and dad, so that you can come out of this equipped. Because we chose intentionally it's not prescriptive. It can't be prescriptive. Every child is different. Every home is different. And so how have you guys begun to utilize it in your home? I'm so curious.
Yeah. So one of the episodes, spoke to your experiences, and it had to do with like getting on the same page with your as a husband and wife, which is good. But around the same time, I have teenage daughters, high school daughters, and they always notice that as a dad, I get so uneasy and almost irritated whenever I know that they are in some capacity alone with a young man, whether it's high school or on a school trip or on a bus trip. And they just see me get pretty fired up about it, and they never understood why. And so my wife and I watched one of the episodes, and she said, it's probably time you need to talk to them about that so they can really understand what's in your heart versus them just thinking you're just a mean dad that thinks boys are the devil. So at dinner that night, that's what I did is I sat down, which I have 2 teenage daughters, a 5-year-old, 2-year-old, and now 2 twins. But so I had at least the 4 oldest all at the table, and I discussed my experience, my introduction to pornography at age 6, and what that looked like, and how that snowballed into a middle school, junior high, and high school guy who loved Jesus, but at the same time had a hidden sin that warped my view towards the girls in my class, or at least did not make me the brother that they needed and deserved. So that's the way I phrased it with them and talked with them. And your story may be similar to mine, Nick, but like I was the kid that parents wanted their daughters to date. We can talk about if that's even good, or wanted their daughters to marry is probably a better way to put it. And just like the best, best of the best. And so if I was classified by people around me as the best of the best, but I had this darkness over me, how do you think I feel about the boys in my daughter's class, who, especially ones I don't consider the best of the best, and have so much more accessibility or access, I suppose, to pornography or illicit material or just more, the culture than I did. So I shared that, and it instantly like, oh, we get it, Dad. And you see that came to fruition. My daughter was recently asked to homecoming, and she said yes to the young man, but she also said, but you need to call my dad. And she gave and so that's a 10th grade daughter who literally told a young man to call her dad. So pretty cool, but I don't think it would have happened if not for the sex talk. So that's fun. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, that's
and
so
I never thought that
exciting.
would happen. Yeah.
That's amazing, because that was my next question. How did they respond? And so you're saying they responded receptively, which ironically, literally just before we got online, there was a comment that came through that dads should not be involved with the sex talk at all with their daughters. And I basically gave the answer you just gave, which is, 1, that's absolutely false. And 2, as a father, you have such an opportunity to communicate how, 1, maybe you acted, and how similar conversations I'll be having with my children one day. And then 2, how you want a man to treat them, how they're valuable and what their worth is, and how, you don't want their bodies to be objectified by another young man. And I think it's almost, if not guaranteed, to be more powerful for a young woman to hear that from her father than from mom, because there's just some more acknowledgement of the reality when dad's like, yeah, this is real. This was potentially my story. So, man, that's amazing. So sex talks around the dinner table. Yeah. Any other dinner table conversations coming up? Or you have such a spectrum of age of children. So I'm so fascinated how you guys are doing that.
Yeah, I do. You have to be careful. Even when I speak in church, I tend to look around and see if the audience is like under 10 or not. So I pick my terms a little better, but definitely want to not water down my language around my teenagers. But this didn't happen in a vacuum. Ever since they were children, I've done a segment at the dinner table on Wednesday nights called Dumb Things Dad Did. It's to the beat of the intro music is the, I think it's Lecrae or somebody. It's like dum, dum, diddy, dum, dum. So we play that theme song, and then I try to do an age-appropriate dumb thing I did. So when they were in 5th grade, I did dumb stuff from 5th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, all the way. I mean, just silly, dumb stuff I did. So now in high school, it's pretty easy. I've set a good foundation to where they've heard dumb things and it's got humor with it, which for me is important. I love my family. Hopefully, is a house of joy. But the talks I give now will be to a 10th grader and 8th grader. Of my, like, at the 8th grade, a dumb thing I did is I asked a girl out on a bus just on a whim because I got dared to. That'll probably be a good little dumb thing Dad did. And with the 10th grader, I don't know what that one will be, but that's probably when I started trying to date girls without a vehicle and without a phone, back when that was more the norm in Arkansas, for sure, for a kid from a small town. So I'll probably lean on that. But at 10th grade, I was still doing just dumb stuff at campouts and things, which are more fun for them, like just blowing up stuff. So I try to keep it light, but if I can weave the sex talk in, we'll do it. And my 5-year-old doesn't care either way. He loves talking about his penis right now, so it's easy.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, things we tell parents all the time is with your 5-year-old, it's talking about the name of his penis, and, we can touch there when we're going to the bathroom or when we're taking a bath or when we're with the doctor, and, who can and who can't touch you there and things like that. It really is not complicated around, hey, God made this thing and this is what it's for. And when you say that about your 5-year-old, I think to a thing you mentioned in passing in your story, but if I remember, you just said you were exposed to pornography at the age of 6?
Yes. Yeah, so that was when I talked to my daughters. It was like, look, I was at a Books A Million, somehow on the healthy sex aisle next to a train, and you just think, like, how in the world does that happen where even my parents don't see me? Some adults should say, there's a 6-year-old looking at I still remember the pictures to this day of what healthy sex positions look like. But, it's a good illustration for today. The access was so easy for me in a public place. Like, where are we at today? But it certainly has not gotten better.
Yeah, and I mean, that's another reason why we encourage parents to start early and often, is because you should not assume your child has not seen it or will not see it until a certain age. Unfortunately, our children live in a world full of digital devices. All of those digital devices access the internet. The average place of exposure is the school bus. The average age of exposure is 8 years old, which means there's plenty of children under the age of 8 that are exposed. And man, I'm just excited for how you and your wife are leaning in, and the story of your teenage girls, man, that's just so cool. When my 2-month-old daughter is that age, I want that to be the story. So I'm taking notes from you. And I think it's just so important to bring them up in that, because there's nothing left to question, and they also know that they can come and ask you and your wife. And so I'm equally excited about now this initiative. You started it in your home. You and your wife are on it. You're equipped with the sex talk. I mean, even your teenage girls are now like, hey, Dad's on our side and here's why. Those conversations will continue as they date, as they one day might get engaged and get married. What are you doing? I'm so excited for this in regards to your children's school, because I don't think many people think about this, but man, with our current cultural conversation around public school sex education, as like, that's just where people learn about sex. Right. What are you excited about kind of pivoting with some of that?
Sure. So we all know, like, Christians don't have a monopoly on truth. Like, truth is God's truth. Like, that's just the way it is. So in our school, we're very passionate in our parent-teacher fellowship just to have opportunities to talk about cultural issues. And so the sex talk, when I heard it on the Better Man podcast, the first thing that popped in my mind was this would be a great resource for our school to plug in for parents to have on our resource page, and to have legitimate, like, events where we talk about it. Like, I think it's one thing to have the sex talk as a resource in your home for you and your wife to do, and there's some motivation there, like protecting your kids, training up a child. But it's almost a whole nother, for me, motivation to know I'm going to talk about this with the parents in my kid's grade, or the parents in my 5-year-old's grade, and building this culture. One of the episodes from the sex talk really empowered Alyssa and I, my wife, to ask the parents of my kid friends, hey, do you have covenant eyes on your phones? I mean, on your TVs, computers? Are you letting them watch YouTube unfiltered? Like, so, which is crazy. Like, I thought that'd be super easy conversation for me to have at some point, but now I'm doing it. And at first it was a little more difficult than I thought. You're like, I'm like a bad guy here talking to my daughter's friends, mom and dad, about, hey, but it makes the most sense. The guy in the episode, I think, said you got a loaded gun. But I mean, that would have helped me a lot as a kid, for sure. And it was a different age, I suppose. But now I want that to be the trend in my kids' school is, man, we are like a culture that is okay asking, hey, are they going to have access to pornography on a whim? Are they going to have Roku, like unfiltered, every app available? Can you tell me that? Because if so, they're not coming over. And that's okay. Like, you knew that because we've talked about it in our school. But I'm super excited for a lot of parents just to get on the same page and see the science, the facts, the stats, and obviously God's plan behind sex, in one concise resource. And the questions on the resource were Alyssa and I's favorite part, because we can get, let's be honest, I came from every young men's battle background, like been through 1,000 resources, I suppose. So you can find them everywhere, but the resources and questions based on the episodes were probably my favorite part, and most useful for our school curriculum we're wanting to build. So
which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you guys attend it's a private Christian school or a private school?
Private, yeah.
Okay.
Private Christian school, yeah.
And I love that too, because I think sometimes parents don't realize that you could be the best parent around this conversation and have everything perfectly in place. But like you mentioned with that episode of the Sex Talk, your children will go over to somebody else's house and unknowingly be exposed. And if you incorporate this into your community, then it does become a norm. Sexual integrity becomes the norm. And I have a vision, I think you do too, but to see every private Christian school in the U.S., there's almost no reason not to adopt the Sex Talk. I'm curious what you think about that, because I, of course, am, supposed to say that.
No, well, yeah, 100%. And not just to talk about the affordability of it for private school, because I know as private schools, we see budgets and things, but just to have it on the website as a resource for moms and dads to come together and say, let's do this as a study together. And it's rooted in God's word. So we stand apart as a Christian school because we have a biblical worldview on all the truths we're learning. Like, truth is truth. So we're learning it, but we're wrapping it up with the gospel. So the Sex Talk has facts, has statistics. The world's catching up too. They know pornography is bad. We can go into another one of how we're going to get this into public schools, because that's the second goal. And it's already happening, actually. But as Christians, we want to train up our children in the way they should go, disciple them, because we're going to be held accountable before God one day for how we raised our kids. And I want kids who love Jesus, the greatest yes the world's ever known. And so we say you can't say no to something till you have a greater yes. So if all of our parents are on the same page of Jesus is the greatest yes, then let's get this on our hands and take kind of the evil we're equipping our kids with and replace it with Jesus. Yeah, to me, it's a no-brainer, super easy to get a hold of, easy to talk about. And whether we're extroverts, I think, but introverts, just having it as a single collection of streamlined biblical worldview of how God intended sexual integrity for our kids is really nice for us.
Dude, that's the perfect way to put it. And so if I'm a parent listening right now and my child attends private Christian school, right? Like, what did you do? How did that conversation go? Because I think that would be, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in those conversations you had. So like, how did you bring it before your school? Who has now agreed to implement this? So like, if another parent is listening and their child goes to private Christian school, what did you do? What's their playbook?
Sure. So I think we all want to be involved with other parents. We want, whether it's football games, but what we did is we have specifically a father fellowship where dads come together to pray and talk about specific parenthood issues with a biblical worldview. So the sex talk easily fits into that mold, and it's simple enough for us to reach out to. We have a PTF lead where we can reach out to and say, hey, we're thinking that this would be a great idea to implement in our Father's Fellowship, but also to the school as a whole.
What's PTF?
Parent-Teacher Fellowship. So some people have the PTO, PTF, what you call Parent-Teacher Fellowship. But what's nice about schools is that they're local. You're typically living nearby. And these are people that you can talk with and want to be spoken to. And they love your kids. And ultimately, they see in the school when kids are in 5th grade making moaning noises at the back of the class and thinking, that's happening here. Like, what is going on? Or there's things happening on social media in their high school, and they see it and they want to partner with someone that says, surely we're not the only ones raising your kids. And so when you go to your school administrator, it's almost super encouraging to them to hear, oh, we're going to partner together in this. And at our school, we do something called the Golden Triangle. It's a partnership of parents, the teachers, and your church. So it makes the triangle. So we partner with all three of those to implement something like the sex talk and have avenues for that to happen. But the conversation went, hey, can we do this? The response was, how much does it cost? And did you like it? And I said, yes, here's how much it costs. And they said, okay, great. How long do you think we should implement it? And I said, I'd love all year, but specifically, we definitely need it December through May. And they said, okay, but I don't know exactly when we're going to make it live, but it'll be implemented for sure for the spring. We have a special event for the sex talk, and we'll have a roundtable discussion with parents where it's called Harkness Method if parents want to look up the Harkness Method, but you basically have a topic and then you're not talked at so much as you prepare in advance, and then you talk to each other and through some things. It's just a different teaching style. So parents are learning how their kids are being taught, but also learning the same way and growing. Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing. And so, I mean, just the takeaway there is you literally just went and asked.
Yes.
And then their first question, which I understand, is how much does it cost?
Yeah.
And
cool.
you know, and to be frank about that, we're a nonprofit and we priced it as cheap as possible because our vision is to see a revival of sexual integrity and to get as many parents as possible equipped and protecting their children, because that's why I get out of bed in the morning. Yeah. And so we made sure it was not cost prohibitive.
Yes.
And therefore it's more of just a matter of, you know, a listening parent who's like, oh, I have the voice of, or can go knock on the door of the local principal, teacher, committee board and say, hey guys, like, and I think one thing cool that's really cool, Ryne, I'm curious, before this, does your school, do you know, did they have anything for sex education?
Sure, not. I do not think so specifically. What we do is we break up the 7th grade girls and boys in their own classrooms. So 7th grade girls, my wife actually teaches that class. They go through sexual integrity and basically the lies the world teaches, and the boys go through. I haven't had a boy go through the 7th grade class, but I've had awesome girls go through the 7th grade. So I know that's basically the sex talk happening, and it probably happens before then as well. But
yeah, which is, I mean, it's amazing they're even doing that. But I think that's one of our hopes as well with this design, because weirdly enough, I'm in my doctorate right now pursuing curriculum and instruction. It's a doctor of education. So I might know a thing or two about designing curriculum and education. Awesome. And when I built it, when our team built it, that was the goal, the methodology, was that it could be adopted in multiple different platforms. And because I went to private Christian school, I can tell you right now, we didn't have anything, literally nothing. And so it's almost a no-brainer from an administrator's perspective, because you don't have to touch that hot button topic. If you say, hey, we're incorporating this at-home family discipleship curriculum because mom and dad, you should be the primary sex educators, not us. Right. And it's an easy button for educators, and specifically private Christian educators, where they can just plug and play and say, here at Little Rock Christian, or, I grew up at New Life Christian School, this is our solution for sex education. And our solution is equipping mom and dad with a robust curriculum so that they can have the talks in their home. And we're a supportive structure alongside of them. Back to that triangle. I love that triangle analogy. I'm excited that your school's on board, that your community's on board. And man, I just, personally, alongside of you, I am praying that more private Christian schools will take this up. I'm probably going to text this episode to a bunch of private Christian school educators that I know. So if you're listening to this and I texted it to you, I'm sorry. But it's my heart, because I was in private Christian education. And to your point, that environment is not a perfect, pure environment. Sexual brokenness is still there. And you, as someone in that space, you can't fix all the problems. And so how do you address it? So, dude, I'm just excited that you took the lead on this, and I'm honored to walk alongside of you as you continue to lead this out in your community. I would say, what is one thing you're excited for the future with the school's adoption of this curriculum?
I think I'm a big vision guy, too much so. I over romanticize everything, but in my heart of hearts, I think this will be a success in the spring, and it'll grow beyond our borders at Little Rock Christian Academy to where it becomes a city event where we're inviting, not necessarily churches, we're inviting our neighbors from all around Little Rock to come to this event and have roundtable discussions with people from all over the city. And then, of course, from there, you can see how it would just forever growing, but specifically for Little Rock, that'd be my heart of hearts. And then ultimately, if we can raise the bar on that age 8, and if we move that needle just through in my school specifically, praise God.
Dude, I love that vision. I don't think we talk about that enough. I think that's really important to incorporate here, because that's something to focus on that we can move the needle on. And it's, as more parents, as more schools, as more churches incorporate this, you are bolstering up and protecting your children so that we can adjust that average age of exposure, because there's no reality where your child's not going to be exposed. But if you're equipping them to not put themselves in situations where it's going to happen, and or, giving them the defenses that they need, when that day comes when they are exposed, in a perfect controlled world environment, it wouldn't be till 15 or 16 that they unfortunately see hardcore pornography for the first time. And they will have been equipped with a decade of conversations from mom and dad to know, I need to immediately look away. I need to kill whatever lustful thoughts begin to pop into my mind. I need to acknowledge that this is the enemy twisting and lying about something beautiful that God made, and to properly, and then to come and tell their parents, because they're still 15 or 16, and say, hey, Dad, I saw this today, and, you might have messed me up a little bit, but hey, you can come alongside of your son or your daughter in that space. I mean, that's the dream, man. If I could snap my fingers and wake up in a world like that, oh my goodness.
Yes.
And that coincides with this other statistical problem and science problem of the age of brain development and these early exposure moments. There's another horribly detrimental component to that, and it's that their brakes and their brain is not developed. So there's this neuroplasticity, this hyperdopamine thing that starts to take place. And you've heard people say it's like giving your child heroin, because it's that level of an addictive entity.
Yes.
And so, man, if the average age of exposure in Christian homes to hardcore pornography went up to 15, of course, I want it to be never. Right. But if it went from 8 to 15, what kind of world would we live in? What would our communities, our cultures, how much more of a lighthouse would we look? That's something to move towards, man. Like aggressively. Let's go.
That's right. Amen, brother. Yes.
And
Man
it's cool,
being
man.
man. Yeah.
Because
I love
you're
it.
doing it in your home with your teenage girls. So it starts, not to quote Jordan Peterson, but it starts with personal responsibility. Like you taking responsibility in your home. And then for a listening parent, like step one, don't pass go, is do it in your home.
Yes.
And then if you're ready to receive the next, action step or the next call, it's plug it in with your local church or your local school, because that's how you can impact so many more than just your home.
That's right. Yeah. A book I highly recommend is called The Men We Need by Brant Hansen. But in it, he says like the people around you should be safer because you're there. And I think that goes for us as moms and dads, but also your sons and daughters as they're getting older. The kids in their grade should be safer because they're there, and they may not be there if they're wanting to be at home looking at illicit material, pornography, hardcore pornography, masturbating, like wasting. The devil wants to waste our time. Read Screw Tape letters, and you'll see the devil's strategy. Ultimately, we want to send out missiles out of our home into the world who are lighting the world on fire for Jesus and sharing the gospel, and not hindered by a secret sin that has warped their minds since age 6 in my case. But God redeems it. God doesn't waste anything. He all things work for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purposes. Like, man, God doesn't waste an addiction, but he sure didn't want me in it to begin with. But he uses it. Yeah.
100%, man. I mean, that's literally the best way to land the plane, because we don't want other children, your children, my children, to have your story, my story. Like, that's what this is about. And God will use it. If you are listening and that was your story, he will redeem. He has in your life and my life. But man, how cool would it be if he didn't have to? Like, how much cooler? Like, he's that big and he can do it. But how much cooler would it be if he doesn't have to, because your mom or your dad took you under their wing and shepherded you in a biblical sexual ethic. So, Ryne, thank you for leading, my man, and thank you for leading in your home, leading in your school, leading in your church. I can say it's just a true honor to lock arms with you on the front lines, even though I'm in Lynchburg, Virginia, and you're in Little Rock, Arkansas, bro. Yeah. Thankfully, we have technology and we can do this, because let's change that average age of exposure. Let's move that number up. Let's impact our communities. And bro, thank you for coming on this episode, my man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Praise God. Thanks for having me. And thank you for being so accessible. That's not said enough. Like, you are so accessible to me. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I tell people that all the time. I'm like,
Call me.
Thankfully get paid to be accessible. Like, it is I sat down with a mom the other day for 2 hours, and her son is an 18-year-old, full-on addicted to pornography, and just walking through how we can come alongside of him and things of that nature. And she kind of said the same thing. And thankfully, our donors and individuals that come alongside of our ministry allow me to study this stuff day in and day out, to build things like this, because not everyone is called to this unique space, but I do feel uniquely so. And I was so glad when you reached out, and I was like, yeah, let me just call you, bro, because I'm here and I want to talk and hear how I can come alongside of you. So for people listening, yes, we are here. We are available. We are not some distant org trying to sell you on some software. We're in the trenches with you. So bless you, Ryne. This has been another excellent episode of the Sex Talk Podcast. Like and subscribe. If you're a parent and you want to get this plugged in with your local school or your local church, you can give me a call and I will answer the phone. We'll see you guys again on the next episode.
Welcome to thesextalk.com, where parents can go to get clear and confident to have the sex talk with their kids.
Because I think sometimes we think we're the first generation of Christians who's had to live in a sexually depraved society, and we're not.
We are so glad that there is material like this for our world.
We ourselves are often nervous about having the conversations with our kids.
The Sex Talk is about so much more than the birds and the bees or explaining to your kids where babies come from.
In that, we need to come alongside them and serve as a coach.
We only have a window of time to invest in our children.
What do you wish you would have had when you were 12?
We're going to take a journey that might be a bit uncomfortable, but if we will pass through the truth shall make us free.
It is such an important conversation for you to have with your children, and we are just so thankful that it's now available.
What these conversations are, I think, is something that our culture and society need to be having holistically.
Because we do believe that it is life-changing for you, your marriage, for your family, and for your child. We are so honored to be your guides throughout each session of this course. So let's jump in.